Mitt Romney, the governor of Massachusetts from 2003 to 2007, and a Harvard graduate and presidential candidate, too. Maybe will be again. He's on the other end of our line this morning. Good morning, Governor.
Good morning, Michael Patrick. How are you doing?
Really good to talk to you again. How's life these days?
Well, it's very, very nice. I'm up at Lake Winnipesaukee today in New Hampshire. I live in New England, and I miss the Great Lakes, but this is as good as it gets for somebody who loves lakes.
You know, I was in Kennebunkport last weekend, and I couldn't help but notice how it almost had a sort of a Mackinac Island feel to it.
You know, that's true. The coastline is beautiful, of course, in Maine, but the difference is that the salt water with the barnacles and the seaweed and so forth is very, very different than the fresh water of the Great Lakes. And being raised on the lakes, I'm partial to lake water as opposed to ocean water.
Yeah, I know. It's a certain aroma that comes along with it.
That is true.
Do you remember, I'm sure you do, what it was like for you on primary night and election night? Were you the nervous type, or what do you remember about those nights?
Well, the first time my dad ran, which was in 1962, he was running for governor. He only won by a few thousand votes, and frankly, I was pretty nervous that night. I was 15 years old, and then a couple of years later, he ran again, because back then the governor ran every 2 years. And it looked like he was going to lose that one, but he pulled it out. But I was always surprised that even though it looked to us like he was going to lose, he was calm as could be. He was one of these guys who didn't live for winning elections. He cared about things very deeply, and if he didn't get elected, why, that was that.
That's what Pete Hoekstra said to me the other day. In fact, off the air, I said, well, are you nervous? Are you excited? Because the day is coming. And he said, you know what? I'm ready for the people to decide. And if I don't get the job, it's not the end of the world, because you know what? That's going to be a really hard job.
Well, he is right about that. I think Pete is a terrific guy and an extraordinary talent. And his background in business will be helpful to a state that needs to rejuvenate its business credentials. But from Pete's personal standpoint, going back, having served in public service, going back to the private sector is not all bad. So I'm sure he'd like to get elected, but he won't be crying if for some reason he doesn't.
No, and now if he were to win tonight, the primary, and give you a ring, let's say he gets elected in November, and he says, Governor, what advice would you have for me now moving from Washington into the role of governor? Because after all, you did it in Massachusetts.
Well, I'll tell you, when I got elected in Massachusetts, one of the first people I called was your former governor, John Engler. Mm-hmm. And I said, John, I've got a huge budget gap. We're also losing jobs. We're in real trouble here. Can you come by and give me some advice? And he was kind enough to fly to Boston. He sat down and spent a day or two with me. We went through our budget. We talked about priorities. His advice to me was like my dad's advice to him when he got elected, which was be bold. When you face real challenges, you can't take baby steps. You've got to be bold, and that was what was needed in Massachusetts, and I think it's what's needed in Michigan again. I think Pete Hoekstra recognizes this is no time for baby steps. It's going to take some very dramatic change to dramatically improve the jobs prospects for people in Michigan.
We know that Pete Hoekstra is a very sort of fiscal conservative, in fact, so conservative that all those years in Washington, the better part of 20 decades, he slept on his couch in his house office there.
Yeah, there's no question. His personal financial history tells you something about the man's character. He rides around a bike. He's got an old car. And you're right. While he lived in Washington and served there ultimately as the chairman of the Intelligence Committee, he spent the nights in his office. And I guess they shower in the office building has some showers there. But he like a very few other congressmen, just lived in his office and said, I'm not going to be spending a bunch of money on some expensive high-end hotel or apartment building. He knows the value of a dollar.
So conservative is he that it was a year ago and some months when he first was making noise about possibly running for governor. We were at the Detroit Regional Chamber Policy Conference at Grand Hotel on Mackinac Island, and he started talking about maybe having the state divest itself of the mansion there, the governor's residence on Mackinac Island. And it got a lot of people riled up about that, and then eventually found out that there's some clause that the state can't sell it. It's entrusted to the Park Service or something like that. But I would imagine...
Well, I remember John Engler made a campaign issue of selling, was it the helicopter or the aircraft?
Yeah.
But he made it very clear he was going to be a more austere governor than had been the predecessors. I don't think the Mackinac home is going to go for the reason you cite, but I know in our state, we owned a lot of property that had just been set aside, old state hospitals, old mental hospitals that were no longer being used, and we went to work saying, these things cost a lot of money to maintain, got a lot of personnel that tries to maintain them. Let's get them into private hands and allow businesses to come and grow there. One of the things I was most pleased with was an old military base that became the site for Bristol-Myers Squibb building, I think one of the largest biotech manufacturing facilities in the country. So, there are opportunities with some old land and some old property that can be sold and put to work to create jobs.
Yeah, I still wish that time that I ran into you at the Republican Leadership Conference when you were running for president down there in front of the Ann Cottage on Mackinac Island, that I would have invited you up to the residence, because I happened to be staying in the governor's residence for that couple of days, and it would have been fun, I would think, for you to have gone back, even though we had a Democratic governor at the time. She wasn't on the island, so we could have snuck you in there, right?
Michael Patrick, I would have loved that. Let me tell you, I did get the occasion to ask the Governor Granholm if I could go inside the mansion again just to relive old memories, and it's a beautiful, beautiful home. Of course, all wood paneled and beautiful porches and an extraordinary view. You can see the bridge from the home. I wasn't invited to go up and look at all the bedrooms. I understood that, but it was very gracious of her to let me take a walk around memory lane.
A Zogby poll says that you're the front runner for the Republicans and that you have the best chance to beat Obama if you decide to run for president again. When will you make that decision?
It's certainly going to be after the elections in November and probably, well after. I'm just not sure. I know we're not going to give it any thought until the elections are over. And we'll sit down with a family and talk about it. It's a difficult decision. A campaign is not easy, and the key thing, I believe, is to be able to replace President Obama with someone who is more able to create the kind of economic growth and job growth and income growth that I think Americans are looking for.
Do you know the one reason that you have to run for president? Can I tell you the one reason?
No, go ahead.
Here it is. This is a piece of tape from when you ran last time, and we talked on the phone. I asked you a key question about your administration. Here's what you said.
Just in passing, if you are elected president of the United States, what shot have I got at being named U.S. ambassador to Ireland?
Well, with a name like Michael Patrick, I think you got a pretty good shot indeed.
My fingers are crossed then. Thank you very much.
You're still looking for that ambassadorship, huh?
I'm still counting on it. That, to me, was a promise, it sounded like, wasn't it?
Oh, my goodness. It sounds like a done deal to me.
Well, we got Mr. Rooney in there now, and he can have his fun for the moment, and then, I'll stand at the ready.
Hey, you could broadcast from there, too. It would be a lot of fun hearing you come from the Emerald Isle.
It sure would, and the time difference would work in my favor, if you know what I mean, because we'd start at 9 or 10 in the morning, which means I could have a proper Irish breakfast, maybe even a pint.
There's no early hour for pints in Ireland.
If there's one thing that would stop you from running for president, what would it be?
Gosh, I just don't know at this point. We really haven't worked through the pros and cons and what kind of considerations it would be. Obviously, personal and family considerations would come high on the list, but of concerns. But at this stage, my family would be highly supportive, I'm sure.
Has Senator Kerry taken you for a ride on his boat there across the state line?
I have not had the occasion to go to Rhode Island to sail around in his new multi-million-dollar yacht. He married well, and his wife has quite a fortune, and being able to build a boat like that must be pretty fun. But I don't know how he gets time to sail around if he's in the United States Senate, but I guess he does.
Okay. And sail by without paying the taxes, we understand, or the excise tax to the tune of $500,000.
Yeah, I think he found himself a little hotter water than he expected.
You bet. Listen, you're obviously beloved, respected, and admired here in the state of Michigan. I hope you'll get back sometime soon, and we'll talk again.
Well, thanks so much, Michael Patrick. Good to be with you.
Thank you very much. Mitt Romney.